In this chapter, you're going to hear a lot about or read a lot about the important elements that are essential for you to greenlight a project. But the one thing I wanted to mention from the get-go is that whatever you work on, and it doesn't matter how you got to the idea of your story for maybe it's a film or a TV show. It doesn't matter if it's based on a newspaper article that you read that inspired you, or it's someone's life story that inspired you, or if it's based on a book that you read that you want to now make into a movie or a TV show, or it's an original script that you got from someone, or it's a script that you wrote yourself. It doesn't matter where the source of the material is. The most important thing to remember is that it needs to be authentic and it needs to be fresh and new. When I read a script, for example, and I read the first 30 pages, and those first 30 pages remind me of something I've seen before and allow me to predict what's going to happen next, that's the kind of script I will pass on. If I read something that could be similar to something that I've seen before, but the way it's told, the twist that it includes is a new, fresh angle, then you have my curiosity. It's the same for other executives. We're all looking for the new, fresh idea that is driven by not something we have seen before. It's not predictable, it's surprising, it's new, it has multifaceted characters, the story is twisted and turned in a way that we haven't seen before. So whatever you work on, always keep that on the forefront of your mind. It needs to be something that is not like anything you have seen before. During this module, we will talk about the essential steps that are needed in order to get your idea on the screen. These steps include obviously choosing a commercially viable story. You have to secure all related rights. You have to establish a feasible budget. You have to attach viable talent. You define your audience. You define your value. And you do this all in a healthy balance to get your project on screen. And we'll dive into this much deeper during this week. There's nothing more important than finding a story that is unique and is the needle in the haystack. Mainstream story elements include a high concept story with surprising twists and turns, inspiring characters, totally authentic in every way, a super fresh idea that you haven't seen before, written in an innovative style, and developed already with an audience in mind. There are many ways to write a script, and it really depends on what culture you live in, because a story told in Asia or India follows different dramatic structures than a story told in the Western world. Now, here in the Western world and the markets that we sell into are also related to our dramaturgical styles in the Western world. We would use what is referred to a 3-act structure for a script. Sid Field did a really great job in his book and in his workshops in explaining how the 3-act structure works, how it's applied, and why it's important. In Act 1, which is the first 30 pages of your script, you set up the characters, you set up the environment, and you set up the issue that we're going to know about during the next 90 or so pages. Act 2 is a longer section with 60 pages where the character goes through the confrontation. And in Act 3, we have the resolution. And even there, you see that there are structures applicable. You see here with this interesting triangle how a script is structured. This, by the way, applies for any genre. It doesn't matter if it's drama, comedy, action, thriller, horror. This structure is useful and is applicable with any story told in the Western world. When you work on an idea, and it doesn't really matter if the idea is your own or if it's brought to you by someone else or inspired through something else, you always have to make sure that you control the rights. And you do that by looking closely at the chain of title. The chain of title is nothing else than the history of the rights, where they have been. Did anyone ever option this project before? Was it already in development somewhere else? These things are very important to know, because you need to make sure that every step of that chain is so-called clean, and what a chain of title consists of you will learn as we go forward. The next step for you would be to enter into an option agreement. This option agreement gives you the right to work on the project and trying to get it made for a certain amount of time. Usually option agreements are for a year with an extension for maybe another year. The rights acquisition agreement can be part of your option agreement because the option agreement should refer to an acquisition price. How much are you paying for the script? Because in addition to the option fee, you have to pay for the script, obviously for the rights to the script. In the ideal world, the option fee would be deducted from the rights acquisition fee. The rights acquisition becomes payable when the option is lapsing or when it's ending, at which point you can just buy the rights, or when the movie is being made, at which point the rights can be acquired because the rights acquisition is part of your budget. The writer's agreement can also be included in all of this because if the rights that you're acquiring are from a writer whose original idea you're purchasing, then this writer's agreement is part of your optional rights acquisition agreement. Now, if the writer is someone you hire to write your idea, then it becomes a writer for hire agreement. You're basically hiring this person to write your idea, so they have no rights to your idea. You pay them for the work of writing your idea. The development and packaging is related to developing the story and the script to the best possible way, to the best possible stage. You want to never send something out that is only half good. It needs to be developed. The story needs to be really thought through so it is the best it can be. It would then be packaged. Packaged means it would attach a director and an actor. And there are costs associated with it, of course. You pay a writer to write all these various versions. In the development phase, you would have to probably do a pay or play offer to an actor. You give the actor an offer to assign them to your project, and you probably have to pay something to the director during this development phase. This is the time where your money as the producer is going to be invested in making this project happen. It could be your money, it could also be your investor's money. Now, turnaround is something where, let's say you developed and packaged your movie, you spent a lot of money in developing it, you paid a writer, you paid offers, you paid all kinds of things in getting your project ready to be produced, but it doesn't get made. For whatever reason, it doesn't get made. These costs that you have spent will be attached to the project if you've done it right contractually as a turnaround fee. So if someone else then later acquires this very same project, they would have to pay these costs back to you when they are realizing the project, when they're producing this project. As important as developing a really good story is putting a budget together that is feasible. And feasible means it can be supported by sales estimates. We talked about this before, where we said that 70 to 75% of your budget should ideally be supported by revenues from international sales at minimum. Another important component is your bond company. The bond company is an insurance company who ensures the on-time and on-budget production of your film or television project. They will very much and very closely look at the budget to make sure it is sufficient and reflects what you need to do. They will be very careful in making sure it's not too low, and your job is to make sure they don't push it up too high. When you put your budget together, you want to be aware of industry standard fees and cost. What are industry standard fees for an actor? What is their quote? What are industry standard fees for a producer, for rights, and so forth? We'll talk about this. So when we put a budget together, we look at industry standard fees. And obviously, these fees are very, very, very much dependent on what kind of project you're putting together. So I'm going to give you a range here, but please know that it's really subject to the project. So this is not set in stone. We talked about the budget having to be supported by 70 to 75% in projected international sales revenues. So when you pay for the rights and your writers, you should consider about 1 to 4% of the budget being allocated to that department, to the rights department. Your producer and overhead fees should be anywhere between 3 and 15% altogether. That means for all producers, not just for you. The legal and finance fees can be anywhere from 1 to 10%. It really depends on how expensive your money is and how expensive your lawyer is. The insurance and completion bond fees, especially the completion bond fees, are anywhere between 1.5% and 3%. It really depends on what kind of insurance you have, how complex your budget is, and how secure the bond company feels about it. It also depends on who your line producer is, because the bond company would want someone who is experienced and is bondable. The marketing and publicity fees here are between 1 to 3%. They are not your P&A cost. This is just some marketing and publicity that is done as you produce your film or television show. So this could be EPKs or any kind of upfront publicity to create a buzz, or getting the elements ready for pre-sales at the market and so forth. So it's partially also what is paid to the sales agent in order to take your film to one of the film markets like the Cannes Film Festival or the Berlinale or any of those. Post-production is usually anywhere between 10 and 30%, but it's very much dependent on how much visual effects you have in your movie or television project, if there is, expensive music rights that are applicable. Those things are essential. The above the line can be anywhere from 20 to 50% depending on your level of cast and director. The below the line can be anywhere from 30 to 50% depending on the locations, the unions that might be applicable where you're shooting, and your story. The contingency that you should apply is anywhere between 5 and 10%, and it really depends on what the bond company would require from you. The packaging process is an intricate process, and it is important to know the ins and outs of this. So important is, for example, that you have to find a director who shares your vision or elevates your vision. That's okay too. But what should not happen is that you talk to a director and they see a totally different film than you do. This is not going to be the right director for you. It sounds obvious, but believe it or not, it's not always that obvious, because sometimes directors change their vision, and you'll learn all about that when you read on in the modules. The director should be someone who is supportive of your cast choices, and it should also be someone who the cast will approve. So it's vice versa. The cast conversation should be had with him before you make any offers to any cast. But the agreement with the director should include that in the event that the lead actor does not approve the director, you can null and void that deal. Now, you have to make sure that your choices for talent and director are supported by the sales agent and distributor, meaning you talk to them about it, you make sure that the value of your talent supports the value of your project. You can use an equity investor to support you in relation to the development and packaging costs, because with actors and directors will likely come monies that you have to pay to firm up their agreements. It would help you to have a seasoned executive producer assigned to your project, someone who does have a track record. If you're starting out, this is something that is truly helpful to you. You'll find out that you're going to do a group project, which basically describes and establishes all the steps you have to take from the inception of an idea to a green-lightable business plan. We'll put you together in groups, and how that works, you're going to find out this week.